Welcome to another episode of Trending Up with Edgar de Leon and Sebastián Lopez. We hope you enjoy and are challenged to live life differently as you keep trending up. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Trending Up. I'm here joined by none other than Robert Colon.
Yes.
Robert Colon and Edgar de Leon, and we're very excited to be here to be doing another episode of Trending Up. We thank you so much for listening, and if you've started watching our videos as well, we thank you for tuning in. And we're just very excited because today we're having a very important topic that I think is very needed in our society, in our churches, especially as we are a faith podcast. And Robert is going to come and help talk to us about mental health in the church, right? Mental health and what that looks like. But before we jump into what mental health is and maybe the stereotypes that we have at church and all that, Robert, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? And I don't want to say what makes you qualified to talk on this, but why is this something that you're passionate about as you go through? But tell us something about your story and your background first.
I was raised in New Jersey. I was brought up there. I went to the military right out of high school, and I started exhibiting certain symptoms. And because I have like immigrant parents, my mom's actually South Korean. We really didn't know how to handle it. To effectively tell my story, my dad was Adventist, but my mom, unfortunately, there was a situation that she didn't really push us to go. So I went to primary maybe a few times, but really didn't stuck to me. So I didn't have anything to lean on. So when I was in the military, ultimately, I got frustrated. I went down. I didn't know what was going on, so I tried to white knuckle my way through the military, that led to me leaning on the wrong things. I self-medicated. I was heavily using alcohol, and I was just a wreck. And I just I literally only got sleep sometimes from just passing out from drinking, over drinking at the time. Wow. And then it spoke to me, and then I went to get something to help with the sleep because it was really bothering me. And then ultimately I made that split-second decision because I didn't think nothing was working, and everything else that was going on with my symptoms, I said no one would care if I wasn't here, and I took all the pills.
Mercy.
And I just remember thinking nothing was happening.
Wow. Right.
And then, I don't know, I feel hindsight, I thought God was there because I went for a walk. If I didn't, it was nighttime. There was no reason for me to go walk. What actually happened was I went to another person's room in the barracks, and they called the MPs, which called the ambulance, which brought me to the hospital and got my stomach pumped. Yeah. And I wouldn't be here if I just stayed in my room. Wow. So there was many other instances, but really just when I got out of the military, I tried to get my mental health sorted, but it was baby steps. I didn't want to take the meds. And I wasn't committed. And then ultimately, I'll just say this, a lot of things happened. I had a breakdown overseas, and I brought back, and I finally took the medicines. And mental health medication, if anyone is hearing this and knows someone, it's a long process. Even with depression or anything like that, they give you something, and sometimes you get side effects. They give you something for 3 months because that's usually the time period to see if it really works. And if it doesn't work, you got to start back to scratch. Man,
that's crazy.
So it's a long process. And I don't wish it on anyone. And I just remember, I did that. I did that, and then I got kind of. I went to college. I got my BS in business, and even throughout all this, it took a little bit longer, of course. But but after that, I said I wanted a change, and my dad, who was retiring, I asked him if I could go down to Florida and stay with him, and he said yes. And I remember I said this at the Vespers that Sebastian invited me to speak at. I remember one of the first things he asked me was, do you want to go to prayer meeting? And I thought to myself, I don't know if I said it out loud, but I definitely said it in my head. I said, that sounds horrible. But the funny thing, Edgar and Sebastian, was I actually went.
Wow.
I
Wow.
actually
Yeah.
went, and the point is, I know it's funny, but the thing
Wow.
was,
Okay.
my recovery didn't start in the hospitals because I was in and out of hospitals. My recovery
Right.
started when I made a choice to whether to numb my existence like I
Mm-hmm.
have been most of my life with this,
Right.
or try something new.
Right. Right.
And I'm just, everything else is, I got into the church, and it wasn't, I know I said this. It wasn't about the second coming for me. Let's say this right now, because like honestly, I wanted to kill myself so many times.
Right.
It was
Okay.
That was not a mute point. What brought
Yeah,
me to the
yeah,
church,
yeah.
what brought me closer to God, mostly, more importantly, was service.
Wow.
Service to God and service to each other. And
Hmm.
honestly, I just built upon
Yeah.
that, and like
Hmm.
after that, I was just like, I felt you know I saw the importance in service, and it just bled and made me grow closer to God, and
Yeah.
made me have a balanced approach. I do
Yeah.
appreciate the second coming now, but like when I think about it, it's more, not so much if I'm gonna get eternal life, like a lot of people are here in this
Right,
in
right,
church,
right.
just waiting to go somewhere else. I'm
Right.
not waiting to go anywhere else. The thing is, God is here right now.
Right. Right.
They
Yeah.
forget that
Yeah, yeah,
promise.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
just think about the promise
The
of Him.
future.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
In my view, that Jesus taught the disciples because of that, to prepare them to not only for Him to come back, but also to do the work that needs to be done here. And I think mental health is part of that, and that's basically
Oh,
what.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of there. I mean,
Yeah,
thankfully, I've
yeah,
had the
wow.
privilege of hearing your story now. I think this is the third time. But just amazing, right? How you're saying how it just different things that happened. I feel like it escalated a lot and got really big while you were in the army and just
Air Force,
Air
actually,
Force. I'm
yeah.
sorry, yeah, the Air Force. I keep forgetting. I'm always talking with Chantal. I was like Army or Air Force, but Air Force. And how you, like you said, you try to self-medicate. And I think something that two things. The first one is just how I think some people when they hear of mental health or mental issues, right, they're just like, just take your medication.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, it's not that easy, right? Especially in the beginning when you're
It
just
isn't.
now, and I mean, you have to break through all the stereotypes regardless of your background. Different cultures react in different ways, and some are more open to it, some are still in denial that this is a thing,
Yeah.
and so
There's
tough.
like no happy medium. Like either someone is so concerned that they don't think you could do anything
Right,
on your mental
right,
health,
right.
or they think it's just in your head. There's no happy medium.
Wow.
And the thing about it is that honestly, the one thing that all of us, not only people suffering with mental health,
Right.
is that we have to realize that no one's going to truly understand what we're going through.
Wow.
Like personally, like the only one, like we are comforted because we have God, and we know that He knows.
Right.
But like even like my girlfriend or my mom, anyone really close to me, they won't know, and that's okay. The thing is, like, a lot of times people get tied up in the idea of validation. I need to be validated. They do it all in church. They're like, I want to be validated by this pastor. I want to be validated by that. But truly, we need to be validated by God.
Right.
Like, we got to look up, not towards everyone else. We serve each other. We treat each other well. We follow what Christ
Right,
has
right.
molded in his Gospels, and what the Bible tells us. We have to remember our story also, because I say this so much because it's not only for the people who may benefit, but also for us. How it bleeds so much in the Old Testament, how just the Israelites forgot their story. How many times do we have that Red Sea moment in our lives and we forget it,
Yeah.
and then we just don't think
Wow.
that God's there in our lives?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
no,
No,
you go
no,
ahead,
for
Edgar.
sure. When it comes to mental health, a lot of people are ignorant, really. So they try to ignore it. They think,
Yeah.
well, that's for the people who hear voices, schizophrenia or whatever the case is. But it's not. Like, mental health is more than that. It's and that's why I think
Right.
it's applicable to everybody, to be aware of how we're feeling mentally, how we're I would say, not the analyzing, but the way that we're coping with life, because life is not so simple all the time. There's some really difficult times in life. There's some times of
Right.
happiness, but
Right.
there's some times of anxiety, of worry, and
Right.
that will affect the way that you cope with life, and then that will affect the way that your health is, your mental health is shaped, because we are all we're all like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
sum of our experiences. Like what we experience is who makes us who we are, and that's
Hmm.
why everybody has a unique perspective,
Right.
because
Yeah.
Right.
our experiences are unique, right?
Right.
Unless
Right. Right.
someone went through the exact same thing, it's gonna be unique to you. So I
Yeah.
think that mental health has to be something that we all, Adventists. For those who are Adventists, we understand that we
Right.
advocate
Right.
for
Yeah.
Right.
for like physical health, right? So
Right.
you want to make sure you eat your greens, you stay away from this and that and so forth. But
Right.
mental health is just
Yeah.
in that same category,
It's
but
Right.
it's
It's not
ignored because you
tangible,
can't
and yeah.
see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's
You
true.
can't see, E- exactly. And if anybody does struggle with mental health, you kind
Yeah.
of already like
Yeah.
put them in a different category that you can help. So it's
Yeah.
kind
Right.
of like, well,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
but we shouldn't
I
do
one
that.
of the
Like,
things that
yeah,
like I
it's
help
so
that helps
destructive.
me is like I actually ask myself, and why do I do what I do?
Mm.
Like fundamentally, like we don't ask ourselves enough why we do what we do.
That's a good question.
Because
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
is, like, fundamentally, we could be caught up in something
Right,
that is not helping us in our mental health. Like, when I
Yeah.
pray for people,
Right.
I always pray for not only their physical health, which is important,
Yeah.
mental and spiritual health.
Yeah.
Because honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
we as people are
Oh yeah,
we're so
for sure.
caught up. We're in this society right now that is so connected in so many platforms. Look, we're on this platform and many others,
Right.
but we're also so disconnected.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
I just see how like no one knows like what to say. People just push things under the rug, and like I just refuse to do that. I feel like I remember one person said to me that, oh, conflict, you try to avoid. I'm like, that's wrong, because the thing is, there's effective ways to handle conflict.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
effective ways to talk to people.
Right,
Like,
right.
I it's funny. My mom watches these Korean dramas,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like they could solve all the problems in like 4 hours of talking with the right people.
Right, right.
What is going
But
on?
it's a prolonged, like 20 episodes of just like who said what. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, communication is important. And I think moving forward too, Robert, if you kind of want to walk us through what mental health, maybe a working definition, right, of what, if maybe someone that is new, that doesn't really know or doesn't have an experience with someone that, or doesn't really know how to put this, like how does this look? How would you describe mental health or maybe mental illness? Because the reality, before you answer that, Edgar and I have spoken in other episodes of the reality of the conflict that we're living in, right? How the Bible presents what we call in Adventism the great controversy, but just the great conflict, right? And this conflict has seeped into every person in some way, right? Because of sin, every person in some way has some dysfunction or malfunction, whether that be in how they deal with relationships or how they view themselves and your true worth and just there's different layers of it. And so I think this conflict also bleeds into mental health, right? And so many people might be thinking, maybe I've never felt depressed or anxious to the extent where I need to take medication. So what happens many times is that if I've never gone through it, then certainly it's not true.
Yeah.
And if I don't understand it, then they're just lying, or it's just an excuse for them not just being like, you know what I'm saying? It's just, if I don't understand it, then I just make excuses, and I'm just like, they're not actually going through things. You just got to pray it away or different stuff. But how would you describe mental health or mental illness? And I don't know, give us some examples, just so us and the viewers and the listeners can also kind of understand.
Okay, well, the first thing I would like to say is like I do facilitate a mental health peer support group, and I'm actually
that's
doing
great. That's awesome.
I'm actually also doing another support group on recovery.
Right.
With that being said, one of the key things that I think is really really great, and I think churches, and not only Adventists, which I am, but other churches need to adopt is no one's problem is less than our own. Because the thing is, like, honestly, like I could see
That's
Sebastian here, and I could say, because I'm older than him, I could say, oh, I've been through that. That's not a big deal.
Right.
But the thing is, it's a big deal for him.
Right.
Why are we so short-sighted? Because everyone's dealing with it differently. Everyone processes things differently.
Right.
And it takes a different amount of time. And I just want to start off right there. Mental health, when I look at mental health, and like, it's just like, recovery, when physical health, a lot of times, there's definitely physical health that is chronic, that like you're throughout your life you're going to be suffering it. But there's definitely physical health that you, when they think of recovery, there's medicines you take, a certain lifestyle you take, and then you're cured. Unfortunately, with mental health, it hasn't built up to that case yet. So what it is, when I think of recovery, when I think about mental health, and even some people who have chronic physical ailments, is what do we look at recovery as a holistic approach? Like, it's not just the medicine. If we're only depending on our medicines, that's out of our hands. The doctors kind of help manage that. They go and get their degrees to do that. The thing that we could control is our environment. Where are we? The people we're around, how we communicate, our relationships with the ones we love.
Right.
Those things matter, because we are not islands. We can't think of ourselves like, like I remember when I was going through all this, I used to say, desensitize the sensitivity. It's the worst advice ever.
Desensitize the sensitivity.
But
kind of numb yourself, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, honestly, I think churches and community and everyone needs to adopt. I feel empowered to say this is we need to celebrate recovery. I don't care what you've done. The fact that you want to take that step towards recovery, we need to celebrate it.
Yeah, that's good, because you're not saying celebrate when they're done with recovery. You're saying when someone chooses, they're still in their issue, but they're choosing to, I want to recover. All right.
I think a lot of times, I'm not, a lot of people are just a little bit lazy about it. They're like, even with us ministering to people, they just throw books at you, and then they
we'll pray for you, and I hope you get better.
I'm not saying that's wrong, but like the thing is, we have to make that conscious effort. Call that person, see how he's doing, go out for lunch for them, minister them, and like that's the same way with when it comes to mental health. It's no different. Like in the sense of recovery, it's like you got also the importance of actually finding meaning. For us, it's for me, praise God, I got to come to the church, and a lot of people, go to church. There's a lot of people with different ideas. Let's just be honest. And like, and the thing is, I used to think like those people who are in church all their lives, they have it easy. No, I think it's harder, because you have to sift through that all your life. Me, I got baptized when I was 30. I'm 37 right now. Right. You know what I mean? And I praise God, he just continues. But like, I see it. But like, at the same time, it also gives me that appreciation of those. I feel like with our faith and with dealing with communicating with mental health or anything, we have to be solid foundation, that we don't get defensive, even if someone has different ideas from us. Right. It's not like I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm gonna prove you're right, I'm right, and all that stuff. It's none of that. And honestly, if we're just open and willing to hear and are good listeners, I think that will really help. Mental health is something that it's so vital, because people are like physical health. That's great. But what makes you even go to the gym? What makes you eat that lettuce? What makes you do that? Why don't? What actually? What will stop you from saying, you know what? I'm done. I'm gonna take that fifth of whiskey and I'm gonna drink it. I just refuse to think that we are protected by avoiding it, by putting it under the rug. Like, honestly, people are so afraid in churches that if we talk about it too much, we're going to be tempted by it. True. But how small do you think God is? Right. Like, don't you trust him? God has done tremendous things in our life.
Yikes. That's good. That's good, Robert. That's good. So what would you tell, I want you to, you're addressing the listeners and viewers, what would you tell someone that may be dealing with mental health issues? How would you ask, what would you tell them? And then the second thing, what would you tell people in the church in terms of how to deal and relate, not deal with, but how to relate with people with mental health issues?
Well, I feel like the person who is struggling with mental health, what I would say to them if I knew them, I would, the first thing is, let's just, I'm just very calculated. I gotta see if he's safe. He or she is safe, because that's the most concern. Like, people are afraid of asking the question: do you feel like killing yourself? Do you have a means to kill yourself? Right. But it's been proven, if you say that, it doesn't make them want to do it more.
Yeah.
It actually decreases that feeling.
Wow.
So we have to kind of be direct, but like in a safe
loving
environment
and graceful way. Yeah.
in a safe environment. And like that's why it's so important for all the churches, our churches, to be a safe place. When I look at church, I'm learning the Bible, I'm reading it, but I might not understand all the concepts, and that's okay. Church needs to be a safe place to be wrong and learn your way through that.
Yeah.
If it's not that, what are we doing there? If it's all about, I've been here 40 years, I've learned everything, and I know everything, then what's the point? At that point, like, what I want to tell the churches is that really, you need to look at this idea that I said on Friday. It's not us and them. It's us as a church, us as a community, us as a country, and us as a world.
Yeah. It's together.
It's not. The thing is, I remember I go to the police officers in St. John's and do CIT. It's kind of like it helps the cops to be sensitive with people in crisis situations with mental health. That's
awesome.
One of the things the cops are like, what do I do if they're like this? I'm like, first thing you gotta do is not look at them as it's yourself and them, because that already separates them.
Yeah.
Like, minister what they need. If they're thirsty, if you see they're hot, give them something to drink. Don't take your time. It takes time, and because the thing is, I'm just gonna share this with you. Right now, in 2017, there's an average of 129 suicides per day. Okay, 129, and
wow.
That's 2017. And you may not know this, but Flagler County, Palm Coast, is one of the highest, if not the highest in Florida.
Counties in Florida.
Yeah.
Of suicide per citizen.
Like, it's not like it's something that's increasing.
Yeah.
I feel like the other thing that I remember this one when I was in philosophy, and there's one thing that it was called the looking glass self theory. You ever heard of that?
Looking glass? No.
It's the idea that's happening nowadays. It's like, I am not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who you think what I think you think I am. Basically, you think what you think that person thinks of you.
That's what you are.
That's who you are.
Oh, wow.
It's not who you think you are, or what
or
he
actually think they are. Yeah,
it's what you think you are.
And that creates a big pressure, right?
It creates a pressure because all the social media profiles, this idea of like how many likes I get, all this stuff. It's just like it's embedded. Like it goes back to the idea of validation. Wow. How do we validate our lives?
And if you're not validated on your own, if you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, or if you don't primarily feel validated by God, you're gonna have to look for validation on other
elsewhere
mediums or venues.
And it really hinders the recovery. It hinders the process of mental health. It also hinders our relationships that we have.
Right.
How unrealistic they may be. The divorce rate is skyrocketing. The fact that people are just feeling pressured for this or that way. It's just one of those things that I just feel very strongly about. The thing is, validation.
For sure.
We are blessed that we have a loving Lord and Savior that we could look towards. That is the only unbiased, I would say, God in the whole world. Like, there's no one else. Everyone's a little biased somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember, it just we feel strongly. And when I think of churches, I think that you gotta really adopt the idea of celebrating recovery, and that's what I would suggest, because when you adopt that, you
recovery.
Celebrating recovery. That's just something. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
It's not pointing fingers. Everyone forgets the story that Jesus says. Don't look at the speck in brother's eye when you have a plank in your eye. They read it, but they don't really understand it. And they also have to understand that the first is last and the last is first. Like, they don't understand that concept.
Right.
Like, really, like society just has it all backwards, and it's just it's just amazing when I read the Bible and just how encouraging we have this promise.
It's there in the Bible. We just need to take it out and read it and do that. Yeah.
Just to interject, like, you brought up suicide rates, and it's been pretty incredible to notice that in our society, people have food, People have education if they need it. People have a lot of benefits that in like 200 years ago people didn't have abundantly, and yet today we do have that. But why is suicide rates like increasing? They should be decreasing, right? Everybody should be having their basic needs met. But the thing is, we're not just like animals in the sense that we need food and a place to sleep and we're happy. It's not. We're more than that. God created us to be in relationship with Him, and when we substitute our relationships with God, with other people, which are finite, their opinions change, their values change, everything changes. Yeah, God is the same
Right,
here,
right, right.
yesterday, today, and tomorrow, in the sense that He values you the same, and that assurance is infinite, and yet so special that when we don't have that, we tend to look at other things to medicate that yearning,
Right.
that wanting to be with God. So earlier in the podcast, you mentioned self medication, and self medication to everybody. We're in the most medicated society ever. I think there was this website that I'll put in the show notes if I remember,
Yeah.
but there's a website that talks about like mental health and like the biggest things that people struggle with in like different areas. So you can put your zip code, and it tells you people looking help for
Oh,
anxiety,
that's
for
good.
depression, and
That's
so
good.
forth. And in my area here in New York, it's anxiety. People are just anxious, and then they medicate that anxiety, which it sometimes goes through your doctors. So like through a doctor that gives you medication to help with your anxiety, but people also go to
Right.
smoking, to
Right.
alcohol, to illegal drugs, to medicate themselves, and yet that does not get rid of the problem. It just
Numbs
gets
it. Numbs it.
it.
Yeah.
What would I
Yeah.
say? It
Yeah.
would lessens the symptoms. Yeah. So I think when we understand that drinking and alcohol, no, alcohol and smoking and all these self medication practices, why people do it, we're not just going to be like, well, so and so can't
Right.
give up beer, so they
Right.
can't be
No.
part of our church, and so forth. When we help people understand why, the underlying reason, we can then target the underlying
Right.
reason
Right.
to get rid of the symptoms. Because, like you said, mental health is so deeply
Right.
intertwined with our reality that if we don't, we can tell people stop eating this, or you need to go to exercise, or this or that, but if they don't have the mental capacity to be able to cope and
Right.
move forward, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to be talking at a
Yeah.
wall. It's just not going to happen. So I think that really stood out to me because, um,
Yeah.
we should, in theory, we should have
Right. Right.
Yeah.
all our
Yeah.
needs
Yeah.
met, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
It shows there's a great conflict
And
happening.
I think we've talked a
know?
little bit about, as a church, right? You've kind of mentioned a couple of things that a church can do to help individuals who either come out and say, "Hey, I'm dealing with this. Can you help? Can you pray?" Or maybe you've recognized and you say, "Hey, this person kind of looks like they're going through depression, or they're dealing with severe anxiety or some other thing," right? So you said one of the things is just celebrating recovery. The moment someone chooses to go into recovery and look for help, celebrate that, and being able to be graceful and listening. So what do you think we can do to reframe mental health in a positive light? Because you were saying, and Edgar and I come from Latino, Hispanic backgrounds. You come from, you're saying you're half Asian. It's a mix. You're Latino too, but at least your mom, right? Tell us, you guys weren't there for Vespers, but Robert was telling us about some self-medication that his mom gave him. She made you drink
Deer horn. And I had a bunch of acupuncture. It was one of these things. And going back to the church, I was just I was thinking while I was listening, I just feel like it's reckless for a church to not know all the resources in the community.
Wow.
Like, honestly, what if someone comes up
absolutely.
and says, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
Most people be like, let's just
pray,
Let's
or
just
like,
pray,
but honestly, there's professional and there's certain things that needs to be addressed first.
Yeah.
The person needs to be safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we have to make them, in church, yes, we want it to be a safe place. And granted, the person's coming up to you to tell you that.
That's already saying something.
That's a good thing. but at the same time, you need to you just don't leave it there. You got further. So I feel like churches across the country should have like know where the hotline number is, know where other things like substance abuse hotline number is, all these things. We don't just brush it about that's their outside life. There's not your church life.
Right. It's what you do during the week. We're only interested in what you do on Saturdays and how that affects you. Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that will be helpful.
So
but
being aware of help that you can give to them, not just like that you can actually give them the numbers you can point them to, and not just being like, I don't know how to help you, I'll just pray for you. It's like no, we have these places in the community that can help you.
Also know the support groups. Support groups are a really good tool for people who are maybe just especially people getting out of the hospital, or whatever. They're need to fill up that time. One of the things I say, with either substance abuse or whatever, is that you need to fill that time with something. All that time you spend trying to get a fix, all that time you gotta fill it with something, and that's why it's so important that not only when we think about church, but we have to also think about including people in our churches.
Right.
We can't just have someone wear 10 different hats and no one does anything. Like you need to include them. I just feel like the quality of life for an individual who feels like he has satisfying work is very important.
Right.
Communication is very important because I say this all the time in the support group. We need communication is very important because no one, like you said, it's an invisible disease. No one will. More effective you are communicating, the more help you could actually get, and then the right living environment. Like the thing when I say living environment, it's not just at home. It's also where you're at. Like if you go work or church, how can you make that environment better? Because I see that we talk about anxiety is very important. It's not something to shun over, because there's these people who are a lot older who've been taught not to share their feelings or to express their feelings, and they push it all down, and then what happens? They die they get a stroke or they get a heart attack because that's stressing them in the body. Mind and body are very connected, because the thing is, what I also want to say is that I do breathing techniques. Deep breathing techniques really help. Like I do pray. I do a combination. I do when I'm having a crisis or I'm feeling a little anxious. I do deep breathing techniques where I just do I count to 20 each time, do expanding my abdomen, and then releasing really slow, like back for 20 times, and that usually calms the nerves just a little bit, because you need to address the physical part. And the other thing is progressive relaxation. I don't know if a lot of people know that. Yeah. Literally, it's the same idea. You do the breathing, but you actually tense up, starting from the top of your body all the way down to your toes. You go slowly, progressively, and it really relaxes you, because you're tensing. You tense for 10 seconds, really, and let go, and then you breathe at the same time.
Can we try one of those breathing right now for our listeners too?
Okay.
20 seconds, right? So what do?
You breathe in. You hold it. And you do it again. You do that 20 times. And you'll be amazed how your heart rate will go down. Yeah. Honestly, crisis. I don't know if anyone listening has ever been through a panic attack. Right. It literally feels like you're having a heart attack. Man. It really feels like things it feels physical. I remember the first time I had a panic attack, I actually went to the doctor right away. He's like,
I'm having a heart attack.
You're having a panic attack. You know what I mean? That's what it is. So anxiety and panic attacks go with that. It's nothing to treat lightly. And there's definitely the thing is, this is what I always used to say. Sure. It's okay to not be okay, because there's help out there.
Right.
So that's the thing. And we just need to we need to connect the people with the right help. We need to encourage them, and also as a church, as a community, celebrate recovery.
Yeah. And I think being able to see mental health issues not as abnormal, but as a normal for people, right? Because in the church, it's always seemed, I don't know if you agree or not, but I think many times it's like, I remember growing up, it's like, oh, that person has depression. son locos. They got something in their head. And then in the moment they start going to the doctor for medication, you're like, oh, they're going to the what's it, the what's it, where the crazies go, right? And it was just always like, oh, and so this idea where whoever is dealing with mental health issues is crazy, or you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's not the normal. So understanding, as we understand, like in the context, like everyone has something, right? And this is a normal for a lot of people, for most people, and I think most people that even will even acknowledge it.
Yeah,
I
feel like the thing is, people have to we're all recovering from something, just like Sebastian says, and I just feel that the way to kind of flush out is educating. I look at things in context. I'm not bitter because people don't understand mental health. How could they? 30, 40 years ago, it was much different than it is now. And it hasn't. The knowledge has increased, but the knowledge to the community hasn't. I'm not saying everyone will agree. Not everyone will soak it in. People are set in their ways, but at the same time, what do we do with that? Like the thing is, it goes back to me, like the whole thing about you saying, oh, I'm worried about them thinking I'm crazy. I used to feel that way because I was validated by what they thought of me. I was validated by what church member gave me an opportunity to speak, or what church member or whatever. That's what validated me. And you know how tiring that is? You know how tiring life is? Everything is validating by someone, but not that in our own spiritual life we do serve. The first 4 commandments are about serving God, and the last 6 are about serving each other. And it's just like it doesn't change our empathy and our love for each other. It just focuses us that we don't get stumbled by the fact that, oh, I'm struggling with something. I'm worried about what other people are thinking. There's so many times when people have underestimated me because they found out I have a mental illness, and they kind of throw a wrench at, well, he has mental illness, and they're making excuses for me that I didn't ask them to make excuses for. And that's already hurtful. But like I process it, and ultimately what I'm leading up to is that they're making choices out of fear at this point. A lot of churches, a lot of people, because they want to be assured. They're just backed in the corner, and they make their choices out of fear. But I affirm that we need to make our choices out of hope, because we have a loving Lord and Savior that is more bigger than what we put our bubbles for.
That's powerful. What's that quote you read on Friday?
It was Nelson Mandela
said that.
It's right here.
That quote is powerful.
It's right here. It says, Nelson Mandela says, "May your choices reflect our hopes, not our fears."
Wow. May your choices reflect our hopes and not our fears. Yeah, that's powerful. Powerful stuff. Man, Robert, this is a great story, and I'm sure we can keep going for
let's just
for minutes. But if you want to share, I know you wanted to share. Yeah. So Robert, you can kind of see here if you're watching the video, Revive Ministries. Robert created his own ministries. Talk to us a little bit about what the 4 pillars are, and why you created this, and what your goal is with Revive Ministries.
Well, the 4 pillars are, as you probably have guessed, suicide prevention, also mental health, but substance abuse, and the 4th one is human trafficking. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of gamut. But the thing is, what all of them have in common is that a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of the people suffering or are survivors of that is that they feel like they have no option to stay a victim. And I say there's help out there. You don't need to stay a victim.
Right.
And the thing is, like, what I did 2.5+ years ago was I felt like God had called me, because it's just like we read a lot. People used to ask me. People ask me even today, they're like, do you wonder why God didn't take this burden? Because even to this day, I have symptoms. I still have medicine, but it's a lot less. Like, why didn't God take it away? I feel like God didn't take this away because of what I'm doing right now. You know what I mean? I couldn't do these support groups like I do. I couldn't reach these people, and I feel God's using me in this way. And I just praise God for that. So I felt God was calling me to do this. So what I've been doing in St. Augustine at first is events. I do a suicide awareness concert. I do a mental health summit. I do a substance abuse summit. I walked on this last January for human trafficking awareness. All the counties, and I'll tell you next January if you're around.
Yeah,
it's on a Friday. They just walk at 5:00 with signs, just basically
raising awareness
of that there's human trafficking, because there is human trafficking here in the States, even though people don't realize that.
Yeah,
and it's just something that I've been called. It's funny how it began, because literally I just started emailing everyone in Florida, like telling like a little moment story, right? And then like they basically paid for me to go to Tallahassee, and I was in a group
mean who
the state, and then I was a faith-based person from the veterans peer support.
Okay,
they were focused on veterans and suicide at that point.
Right,
and then Magellan was having a suicide awareness thing in Orlando, and they asked me to speak, and that's the first time I speak. And then, like, I have all these contacts because I've been working with all these people, and I do all these events, like I said, but I do also do trainings. We do have we have trainings for like I want to do a mental health first aid. They have that they do, so people like have better understanding what to do if someone's in crisis. Where there's also a suicide kind of thing that's about two hours or something that they do trainings, and I know the person who does it, and she usually, if people are
so a lot of options,
and it's just like right now I'm just kind of revisiting. I'm taking a little hiatus, but like next year I'm planning to do more events. I'm always open to doing talks. I feel like it's not about me. And spiritually, I would say it's not about me. It's about me reflecting Christ.
Right.
But at the same time, it's really about where I feel God is really pulling me to go. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm excited. I know he's done amazing things for me. He's doing amazing things for me. He's gonna continue doing that.
That's awesome. If someone wants to kind of visit, I know you were talking, you have a Facebook page.
I have a Facebook page. I'm working on a website, which will probably be out in the fall, but the Facebook page is Revive, like it's spelled Revive.
Okay.
Altogether, Ministries and then FL at and Facebook, and you'll
Facebook,
see.
Okay. And we'll put a link on the show notes too, so people can see that. And
I guess we could go through this.
Yeah. Share what you want to share.
Because I did touch upon the 4 pillars. I just want to share with you, anyone who's listening, if you know someone who you suspect or you yourself are thinking about harming yourself, the suicide prevention lifeline is a great tool. I've used it myself. They will talk to you. Don't feel like the number is 1-800-273-8255. Again, it's 1-800-273-8255. Another number I want to give you is a substance abuse hotline number.
Right.
SAMHSA's National Helpline. SAMHSA is an organization. Okay. I forgot the acronym, but they're really great. The number is, for anyone who's like addicted or is really falling on the wayside, is 1-800-662. It's help, but it's 4357. Let me just give you the numbers. 1-800-662-4357. Another thing I want to share with you is that there's an app called Not Okay, and it's free, but it's helpful. If you know someone who's who's in crisis, or who has a severe mental illness or even substance abuse problem,
right.
You just put on your phone. You have like 5 contacts, and you put their numbers in. Preferably if they're local, and then you have a preset message that you could change. That if you're so sick, like if you're on the fence of actually doing something to harm yourself, press the button, it shows your location and everything.
Oh, so that's Not Okay, the app, Not Okay app. Wow. That's cool. We'll link all this stuff in the. And
then the other number that I didn't is the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and that's not just if you want to report. It's also for people who are survivors. There's certain resources and certain help they could get. And it's 1-888-373-7888. So it's 1-888-373-7888. And I wanted to give you this for you.
Yeah, no, I need that. Thank
It's Flagler Mental Health Crisis Hotline. Is this
Okay, just for the area for
Flagler.
Flagler.
Flagler County is 1-800-539-4228.
Okay.
And I gotta admit, I did listen to you guys, so I knew you were from Buffalo, New York.
Wow, you did some research.
I got you the crisis hotline for you
go,
over
Edgar.
there.
That's for you.
It's 716
Hey, thank you.
834 3131. 716-834-3131.
Wow, he did his research, yo. Woo!
And then I just wanted, I did tell you about the suicide. The average is 129, but I want to tell you that more than 70,200 Americans died from drug overdose in 2017.
Wow.
Including illicit drugs and prescription opioids. And then the last tidbit I would say is that the International Labor Organization estimated that there are 40.3 million victims of human trafficking globally.
40.3 million. That's amazing. That's number.
So
so a lot to unpack here. A lot to talk about, but Robert, we appreciate you taking the time and driving all the way from St. Johns County, which is what you were actually staying in Palm Coast today, but I thank you and I appreciate your ministry. I know Edgar and I, this is definitely an area that is new to, I think, to a lot of people, even a lot of our listeners too. Like you're saying, the medicine has improved, the knowledge has improved, but that necessarily doesn't mean it's translated into the church itself, right?
Yeah.
And sadly, that's what the case, the situation we're in. But hopefully through this conversation, as you were listening, as you were watching, you could draw some gleams of hope or inspiration or information. Robert's doing a great job. I'm very excited to be partnering with him and going into the future. We met a couple months ago, and so we're just excited to be able to partner with our community and we just encourage everyone to, first of all, if you're dealing with mental health issues, to seek help. To first of all, understand that your validation shouldn't come from others, but it should come from God, and that it's okay. We are all dealing with something, right? We all have our issues and our problems. And secondly, if you're a church member or someone that is wanting to help, to first of all just apply it to your household and to your home, to your family, and to your church, and say, how can I be more graceful and loving? And maybe I've noticed someone that maybe is under the weather more frequently than not, and so how can I go and help? And having those conversations, like you're saying, hey, are you safe? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like you're wanting to commit suicide? And they may be uncomfortable situations, but I think it's what God would want us to do, to reach out and get in the mess of others, right? And so hopefully it's been a blessing. I know it's been a blessing for me. I know for Edgar too. I'm sure it's been a blessing. And Robert, we just commend you for the great work, and we're excited to see what God continues to do through you. And for our listeners and viewers, we just hope that as you take this information that you can keep trending up. We love you all, and we hope to see you next episode. Peace. Thanks for joining us today. Make sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate us and share our content. Learn more about us by checking out our website. The link is in our show notes. From us to you, muchas gracias, and always keep trending